A warm welcome to Jon Shende, the CTO of Thales Cybersecurity. Welcome to the Master AI in Disruption podcast. Jon, how are you today?
I'm good, Francis. How are you today?
I am good. I am good. You told me that you were calling from Denver, Colorado, ahead of your conference in San Francisco, RSA, that brings 50,000 people, I think.
A little over 40,000, I think, was recorded last year. I'm not sure how much would be there this year, but it's an annual conference and, it's started many years ago. And now it's grown so much over the years. We have a lot of keynote speakers, a lot of vendors sharing their products,
Mhm.
and a lot of basically friends meeting each other sometimes in person after not seeing each other for a year or so. Um,
Mhm.
I am actually looking forward to meeting my CISO group. I'm a former CISO, and I
Mhm.
still keep in touch with this group, a wonderful group of gentlemen. They have a series of events that they are putting on, and I'll be participating. So between that and between our work with AI and AI security, um, you know, of course, with Thales, we are at the forefront of everything cybersecurity, and we have some pretty, I would say, market needed AI security services, one of which we'll be launching at RSA, so I obviously can't speak about it. Um, but I'm looking forward to spending time with the teams there, customer meetings, as well as being at the booths.
Wonderful. Okay, so right into the subject. So before we go further into cybersecurity, AI, and that hot topic, would you like to share with us a little bit about your journey, what got you here from your early days in IT security and digital forensics to your current role as global CTO at Thales Cybersecurity? Some
So
little moments or experiences that shaped your career path. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm within the data security business in the cybersecurity business unit. Yeah, so being in IT security was never my goal, to be honest with you. This is not something, if you had asked me 15 years ago, um, where my career would be, this is not something I thought I would have been at. I grew up as an engineer, and an engineer with multiple roles, right? Sometimes you work for smaller companies where you wear many hats. So for instance, there was one company in my early career where, we were designing early virtualization systems, converting data center servers into, virtualized environments, um, pre-cloud. And, that was fun for me, right? And it's always a matter of innovation and what's new, and what new concepts can we develop, and what new concepts and technologies and services can we present to the industry. um, when it comes to digital forensics and computer crime law, I did my master's at Royal Holloway over in the UK there. um, I thought, my journey would have led me into becoming a forensics expert, um, presenting in court and so on, and thereby, leading maybe deep forensics investigations, working with, the FBI and other global federal agencies or global law enforcement agencies.
Mhm.
And it started that way. I wouldn't, it did. I have had some wonderful mentors. John Austin over in the UK was my professor for computer crime law. He worked at Scotland Yard, and over here in the US, Mark Pollitt was another mentor of mine. Wonderful gentleman. He was at the FBI early, a leader in the computer crime FBI's computer crime unit division. And these two gentlemen were very instrumental in me wanting to be a forensics expert, digital forensics expert. Um, and I was enjoying it until we had that one court case that I had to, I mean, I was invited to sit in on by a law enforcement agency. And, after that case, I'm not going to go details of what it was, but it was extremely troubling for me, the content and the nature of the case, where, I made that pivot and said, look, I don't mind being in forensics, but I don't want to do that kind of forensics for those kind of cases. I would rather be pursuing white collar crime um, rather than the other criminal activities. And I think that was where my pivot occurred. I
Mm.
was blessed and fortunate to land a role at Ernst. And I had some wonderful mentors at Ernst. Joan Ryle, for example, one of the senior managing partners there. I learned a lot just from listening to her,
Mm.
serving her in meetings. And I've always reached out to her with questions thereafter. She's no longer at the firm. I'm no longer at the firm. But, from a career perspective, I always, you know, before Ernst and Young, I had an opinion. After Ernst and Young, I had a changed opinion. And it's
Mm.
my take that every professional, no matter what you study, maybe with the exception of, doctors and so on, and engineers, but I think every profession or every young person graduating out of college should try and get an opportunity to work for a big four, big five, big six consulting company
Mhm.
in the manner in which it trains you. Not only you're not just working, sorry, on one project, you may be concurrently working on multiple projects, and at
Mhm.
times it can be stressful. I recall working 70-hour weeks in New York City, right? I recall that. And I recall thinking, man, this is too much, but I couldn't stop because it was so engaging. It was so informative. And despite coming in with, a graduate degree,
Mhm.
iota of experience, there was just so much to learn on process, on policy, on regulation. You
Mhm.
think process, you think process, you think regulation. But when you get that exposure with
Mhm.
those firms, you're basically working with Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 50, Fortune 10 companies.
Mhm.
The bar is very high in terms of the quality of work you have to prepare and the type of presentations you have to do. And I think that prepared me for my career in IT security,
Mhm.
having to, as I was not in audit, but I did help prepare some of the audit work papers. I did review the reporting and the analysis and provided my request for additional information. I did sitting on customer interviews. When I say customer, your CXO.
Yeah.
Uh, eventually, based on some of the feedback, I believe I was
Yeah.
very by our customer CXOs and their direct reports in terms of what I did. So thus, I think that was foundational to your point of my journey. That was foundational in my pivot. Um, and that pivot led me into a cloud service provider, which
Mhm.
I met another fantastic leader, Bob, and his boss, Jim, who was our then CEO. And these two gentlemen taught me that leadership sits in humility.
Mhm.
Leadership doesn't sit in arrogance. They taught me the power of staying quiet at times before you speak. In some meetings I've attended, everyone wants to speak, they speak over each other. The true leaders sit back and they listen, and then they provide the true. I mean, everybody's has different aspects of leadership, but in my perspective, looking at these two gentlemen, how they operated, it taught me a lot about leading by example and leading with humility people talk about servant leadership. You get all these buzzwords, right? But the fact of the matter is, putting that ego aside, and my philosophy is, if you're a leader, you're there, you've got the job. Your leadership team hired you because they thought you could do the job, and they think you are
Mm.
doing the job because you still have the job. So as a leader, it's your job now to make the others shine and not try to gauge and take the spotlight all the time, you
Mhm.
know. And this is what I learned from these two gentlemen. They reinforced my philosophy there. And that journey, I would say, fortunately, sometimes with some speed bumps, you know, I have made some choices that, I thought, were detrimental. One was turning down a, a very senior security leadership role at a French company, uh,
Mm.
with offices in Boston and Rhode Island and so on. And, that would have led to a eventual CISO of that company. And, I always think back, that was another fork in the road there. Um, but the journey has been about learning, understanding that mistakes can be made, and knowing that from those mistakes, there's a learning experience, and you take that forward. And an example is, in my early career, I was put into a breach response for a global Fortune 100 company. And I had an idea. I mean, I'm a forensics guy, right? So I had an idea of, what to do. I had a wonderful team supporting me, and we had, by extension, multiple other vendors there. And, from those experiences in breach response, it led to another one and another one. And eventually, when I was in that CISO role, instinct, you saw an alert and instinct immediately said, that's not good. Let's shut services down and let's apologize for disruption, but
Mm.
let's ensure that it's not a breach event. And in one instance, we were hit with a ransomware malware. And fortunately, with luck, we were able to shut down that potential breach within 5 minutes. And the luck was, we just happened to notice the alert
Mm.
when it came in, right, and take immediate action. Another example was another breach where, I walked in and, I'm listening and looking at the attack parts and what we were seeing coming in from our SOC analyst team. And immediately I'm like, yeah, I've seen this pattern before, and immediately took actions. And that resulted in stopping something in less than 24 from occurring, So the journey has been a mix of understanding corporate environments, understanding operational environments, from a product and an SI perspective, because I spent time in both, as
Mhm.
well as corporate security. So three areas. I can see things from the corporate security perspective, and when I speak to product teams, I can bring that experience.
Mhm. Mhm.
Experience. When you're in products, you have a vision,
Sure.
which may not really be the reality from an
Sure.
operating
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. John, thank you so much. That was quite comprehensive and very interesting. Yes, many, many insights for us. A few words maybe to situate, your role at Thales Cybersecurity. It's a global powerhouse, so why don't you give us some information just of Thales to position the group, in on its market and core mission, key services, and um, and then your role, in a few words, not too long, but and then we'll move on to the trends on the market that you see. And I'll ask you a question then.
Sure. So, Thales is, an established global corporation. And basically, we're centered around protecting data, application, identities, cloud environments to
Uh-huh.
start.
Yeah.
We are focused on bringing the best of breed solutions when it comes to AI and AI security to the marketplace.
Yep. Yep.
We have a very huge research and innovation team, multiple sites. I'm not going to share the sites. And we have innovation cells that work on leading edge
Hmm.
technologies to protect environments. Obviously, our Thales environments, and for the product and sales teams, our customer environments, and so on. As you know, well over 60,000 employees. We have a very visionary CEO, and within the cybersecurity business unit, we have leadership that is very open to innovation, obviously, because we are innovating, and they're very open to bringing best of breed solutions to the marketplace from the
Mm.
perspective of um, we don't rush into a buzzword. We do the right research, the right conversations with stakeholders, and then we effectively design, or I would say, design is not the right word. We have good design already. I would say, based on the feedback, we try to ensure that the solutions and services that our customers use meet their operational, their
Mm.
security, their regulatory requirements. So that's it in a nutshell. Like I said, we are launching several products at RSA and other conferences this year.
Hmm.
Um, Thales is well known for its HSM. We are in post-quantum cryptography, PQC, and obviously, I mentioned I'm in data. We have a very powerful data security posture management solution. Um, we have things like Trust, which is well known in the market, and we also have a very stellar AppSec team that brings that application security expertise to the marketplace. We also have an IAM division, and they are doing some really innovative stuff when it comes to um, AI. So, as you know, with AI,
Sure.
everyone thinks about AI as ChatGPT or Copilot or, Claude, whatever. There is more to it than that, right? Uh,
Hmm.
we have that chain of services from your input to RAG, which is your retrieval augmented generation, to your
Sure.
vector and the outputs. And we need to have the right protection from runtime input output, right? Your
Sure.
data and all the way to prompt. And these are really key things that we are working on. And you probably saw in the media, we launched our AI security fabric last year.
Mm. So
And
I, mhm.
yeah, it's going to be much talked about next week.
Mm. All right, so we're moving directly to our next subject. So thank you for this. How does Thales cybersecurity leverage AI internally? So you tapped a little bit into, the your end of it, making sure that there's no leak and that you can work safely with all these instruments. But what are the primary challenges and opportunities that you see in securing AI today, AI systems and prompts, as well as you said, the RAG, the RAG databases?
Yeah. So I will not comment on what we're doing internally for security perspectives.
Hmm.
Uh, I can give a comment generally
Yeah.
in from an industry perspective, what the
Yes.
industry is doing. So when we think about what the industry is doing from an AI security perspective and what concerns CISOs have, the number one concern is governance
Mm-hmm.
from that executive level, right? Um, the typical board of director questions I've heard of lately tends to focus on governance. The audit folks obviously, you have governance, risk, and compliance, IT audit.
Mhm.
That is really key. Things like terms like provenance, meaning your traceability, your accountability, the observability. All of these are key things that um, are of concern, in industry. So the systems themselves, right? Think of AI as, and this is how I explained it to folks. You and I, when we were studying, without computers, let's say we were studying without computers, books, right? We
Mhm.
had to read and memorize books, but those books had a print date. So by
Mhm.
the time we read that book, it was somewhat outdated, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. So that's your
Mhm.
LLM. That's basically your LLM. LLM trains you on data to a certain point.
Mhm.
Now, the other thing you have is RAG, right? Retrieval augmented generation. So what RAG does now is RAG augments that search by getting more up-to-date data sets.
Yeah.
So akin to us maybe going across to a library and getting a print that's, a week old, the latest publication, or reading a journal that just came out, that updated something we studied in a book that was printed last year. So it
Mhm.
augments that knowledge, basically. Now, the challenge there is, when you think about prompt, you hear things like prompt injection, where someone can basically trick your AI system to basically execute a command that's possibly malicious to the environment.
Mhm.
There's a concept of chunking, which everyone probably have known from before, where we take data sets and we break them into little chunks and we store them in our vector databases.
Mhm.
Your vector databases could be considered somewhat three-dimensional. So when you do a search, the system looks for keywords, specific contexts associated within that vector in the vector database. And then you look at proximity to that and you get your response
Mhm.
based on that. A malicious actor could potentially hide malicious instructions and chunks of data spread across multiple documents, and thus a traditional monitoring system will miss that,
Mhm.
miss it maybe as just benign text, and
Mhm.
a prompt injection attack can occur there. We are working on solutions for that. We have a solution for that within our AppSec team. The other thing is, data leakage, right? And that's been a concern in traditional security anyway. You need to protect your data. Um, so there is sort of that immediate ensure the data in your life cycle, your chain, as it comes from your documents to
Mhm.
your RAG
Mhm.
systems to your prompts and your outputs, right? Input outputs. We need to ensure that the data, how it's housed in your vector database, is secured by good access controls, encryption, tokenization, traditional security, um, tools and practices. And with your RAG, you have to make sure there is no leakage, across there. So those are from the technical part. Those are a couple of things that, our teams or industry we have been, concerned about and are working on. And there's this other thing called MCP, Model Context Protocol.
Sure.
And basically, MCP makes it easy for you to get
Mhm.
data. So if I'm looking at my SOC for network traffic analysis, I can build an MCP and have my prompt
Sure.
connect to that, get
Mhm.
data. Well, we need to secure that MCP environment as well, you know. So those are a couple of things, and obviously the risk, right? Your IT audit teams need to know the risk, just like we have in our traditional environment, a CMDB for our assets.
Mhm.
We need to have AI discovery. We need to know where our AI assets are. We need to get some sort of control around shadow AI as part of your AI discovery, and
Hmm.
then need to have not just findings but action.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
found all potential risks or threats in the AI ecosystem. How do we take action on this? How do we remediate it? How do we reduce our risk? Are we using signed intent? Are we using encrypted technologies, technologies? Sorry. Are we building a AI risk management? Do we have something like an AI security posture management? Um,
Hmm.
which we do. And, you know, these are things that, we have to pivot because now malicious actors are using AI to attack us. 29 minutes, they can probably run a lateral attack, right? Quite potential with how AI moves at machine speed. So we have to be able to pivot and counter those sort of
Hmm.
malicious actions and activity with AI security products as well.
So that's a big recounting. Moving forward, imagining the future, I know you're a public company and there are some things that you can say and others you cannot, but take us as far as you can. Give us glimpses into um, the key growth levers that you see in the strategic initiative that Thales Cybersecurity is taking on right now and focused on to reach its next level of innovation.
Yeah, that's not something I'm comfortable discussing.
Okay, anything that you can give us, like some glimpses or things that you.
I'm not comfortable.
It's
Sure.
okay. I don't want you to be uncomfortable. So then let's discuss the specific obstacles on the roadmap, to achieve this innovation and the evolution of the organization. So especially around AI security, because as we know, it's becoming more and more autonomous, and can take action, agentic AI, agents. So um, those are amazing opportunities. I'm sure you're looking at them with a very scrutinizing eye, from a security standpoint. Anything that you can tell us there about obstacles that you see and how you go about it? And if it's not like maybe top line, just the philosophy, if there's any difference between, a global company headquartered in France compared to what's being done in the UK or Asia or in the States.
Yeah, so I will not comment on Thales. I can give you a market perspective.
Yep. Thank you. That would be
Yeah.
greatly appreciated. Yeah.
So my opinion from a market perspective, and not Thales, is that, you know, um, the AI is moving at machine speed, right? That's a
Yeah.
buzzword, a phrase everyone is using. When it comes to the different marketplace, the Americas, North America, as you know, they move very quickly,
Hmm.
right? And what I've seen being global, my last several roles I was global, so I've seen these trends. The culture is different. How you
Hmm.
present in North America is different in terms of how you present in the UK, Europe, or Asia. Um, and it's not a one size fit all, right? In the US, because we are accustomed in the US with moving fast, and a phrase that I use, feeling fast.
Mm.
Yeah, that's something that I see more aggressive
Mm.
in North American market. As leaders here, we are willing to within boundaries, you
Mm.
know, we are
Mm.
willing to try new technologies, make pivots in how we utilize, a tool or a platform, faster just to see how it will impact our environment
Mm.
positively, right? Obviously, we would do proof of concept and so on, but over here, there's a willingness to move fast, feel fast, and then be very solution oriented.
Mhm.
So there's a reason every company targets the North American market. It's
Mhm.
just the revenues here are um, very high, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I do love of course, I'm UK educated and have family in the UK. So the culture over there is near and dear to me. We're very self-deprecating, as you know. Um, and, in the UK, it's cerebral, right? As well as, Europe. If you present in Germany, you have to be very practical to the point on task,
Mm.
uh, outcomes focused, as you do in the US, but the tone changes a little bit. Um, there's not that upbeat high energy. And a friend of mine told me legally blonde when I first came here. He's like, John, you have to be legally blonde. You have to be upbeat and preppy. And I'm like, I can't be like that, you know, because I'm more of a sedate person. And I
Yeah,
think before I speak. And, not that people don't think before they speak here, but, I weigh
yeah,
my carefully, before I speak, unless I'm sick and then it's, I speak. um, in Asia, I think Asia is APAC is the fastest growing economy. Um, I think the APAC region, um, very, very smart folks over there. And when I speak to teams in Asia, I'm always extremely impressed by their work ethic
mm,
and their willingness to learn, and the relationships that they have with their customers. It's so across all regions. The underlying theme is relationships matter, right? Relationships matter. Trust matters.
mhm,
Trust is important, especially in AI. Um, and if we lose trust, then it's, as they say, it's hard to gain trust, very easy to lose it. And so that's something that I've seen consistent across the world where people work really hard to build that trust, build that community, and build that thought leadership with their customers. What I've seen work successfully, and it's something that I practice, is being very outcomes focused, right? I don't think anyone appreciates someone showing up and telling them about something that has no application to their environment.
sure.
I didn't like it when I was a CISO. Yeah, it was a waste of my time. More importantly, a waste of the people I invited to join me in the call. Waste
Mm,
of time. Um, so, what I have seen is that overall focus on, do we understand the environment we're going to be talking
mhm,
into and how
mhm,
to solve problems within that environment? What's our
mhm.
understanding before we even have a conversation? So that when we have a conversation, we speak, knowledgeably and eloquently to the stakeholders. Um, that's a consistent theme that I've seen across the globe. And I think that's something that most organizations,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
ours, promotes.
And to finish on one thing, which is a bit more telecentric, but one operational aspect within Thales Cybersecurity that you directly control, um, what would be that one aspect that you would like to see evolve quickly, faster than what's happening right now?
I mean, our leadership wants to move fast, so it's not myself, per se.
Of course, yeah. Mhm.
You know, as a product company, um, we always want to be ahead of the curve, right?
Yes.
The one thing is innovate faster.
Mm,
Everyone wants to innovate faster. We want to innovate faster, but we want to innovate faster, smarter, and practically for our
sure,
customers,
sure.
of course, as well as outside.
So expanding on where Thales Cybersecurity is at, what would be what could you share with us about the new enterprise reality at Thales when it comes to AI?
Yeah, that's a really great question, right? So when we think about enterprise data and the new enterprise data reality, um, 80 to 90% of enterprise data is now unstructured, and we see them scattered across servers, cloud, SaaS, shadow IT. AI on top of that has led to an explosion of data growth and sprawl. So now we're seeing sensitive data, Microsoft 365, AWS, Amazon S3, and so on. And now, traditionally, that's where we saw it. But now we have the additional AI-driven risks, the addition new data that's generated by AI there. It's estimated about 90% of new data that we
Wow.
see is AI generated. And, with Thales, a couple of things that I would say we bring a sort of balance and we bring that stability with, for example, is how we look at data security. So we are a leader in monitoring structured data.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Things like your database activity. We have risk assessments based on that. We provide risk insights and so on.
Mm-hmm.
For our customers within that light.
Mm-hmm.
But now, when it comes to structured data, we're a leader, and we then extend that into unstructured data, that leadership. So with unstructured data, you're looking at you know a lack of predefined format or schema, right? Typically
Mm-hmm.
stored in files and so on. And we are bringing to market solutions that look at how we have that sprawl, look at how we have that, that risk to that sprawl, and how we can provide insights, and taking that a step further, how we can empower security leadership teams, for example, to act on
Mm-hmm.
those and reduce that risk. Early in the call, I mentioned data security posture management. At Thales, that is what we have that enables AI readiness. So DSPM doesn't just report problems, it continuously discovers data, it monitors access, it identifies risky exposures, and protects sensitive information across the environment. And we're thinking of things like encryption, tokenization, centralized key management,
Mm-hmm.
all that will help an organization quickly and confidentially identify risks to their data and reduce that risk. Gartner has a pretty clean definition of DSPM where it talks about they talk about policy, exception handling, policy enforcement, continuous monitoring, remediation, and reporting, right? And we think of this as differentiated capabilities and mandatory capabilities. We add to that where we look at your data sources, be it cloud databases, SaaS application, on-prem, file shares, and other data sources. And then we have our discovery and classification that we consider those, mandatory for the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and at the end of the day, everyone talks about, an approach and how we do things. We look at this holistically because we have that continuous process of discovery, right? And in that continuous process of discovery, we're classifying data at scale. But we don't stop there. As we classify data at scale, what do we do with that? We have to figure out what the data is, where it resides, who is using it, uh, what it does, how does it impact the organization? So then we bring that analysis in place where we bring that intelligence to accurately assess data risk based on what we found from the discovery portion.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, it's wonderful. Someone can say, okay, you can find it, you can analyze it. So what?
It's yeah.
We
Mm-hmm.
protect it, and then we help you control it. So with protection, you have that instant configurable data defenses. And then from that control aspect, we have that centrally managed privileges and data access. So now you have total data life cycle. from
Mm.
visibility to classification, access control, and policy enforcement at every stage where that data resides, be it outside in traditional environment or within your AI generated data sets. So the whole purpose here is we see a lot of silos in the environments.
Mm.
And our intent and our objective is to help move from two silos to unified data awareness. So now we're providing that single interface to understand and secure data risk, regardless of format or location. And now you're not just passively protecting your environment, you're proactively protecting your environment. So now, with that proactive protection, we're looking at real time detection, your risk scoring, and automated remediation, which is then and powered by AI analysis. So, that's just like a snapshot of, where we're going,
Wow.
our DSP.
Oh, so insightful. Thank you. And precise. Well, thank you again, John. That's really great. I think it's a nice signature for our podcast today, that last bit, you've provided so much information, so thoughtful, very much weighed in, as you said. Thank you so very much, John. I can't wish you more luck, with everything you do and the conference and the presentation that you'll make of the latest developments at Thales Cybersecurity. And yeah, I mean, you're in and on a journey that will keep growing, I'm sure, with technology evolving. The task becomes more and more important and pervasive, right, across all aspects of the business or your business. So thank you very much. I hope we'll see you again, maybe a year or 18 months from now, to see where you're at and where the market is at, and hearing your wealth of wisdom on everything that you shared. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. This was a pleasure being.
I appreciate greatly. Thank you.
Thank you.